All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Let's talk about three strategies to build success through consistency. It's your host, Adina, here with you. And I want to dive into this topic because I've been thinking about it myself. Really, because this episode this week for the podcast, I was having trouble sitting down and doing. And what it always comes down to is some of the lessons I'm going to speak about here in these strategies for how to be consistent, how to show up for your goals and dreams, how to show up for your purpose, how to show up for the people that need you, and to do what you're meant to do, even when you're tired, even when you've got health stuff going on, and how to do it in a way that's sustainable where you're not burning yourself out. So, this is a really important topic to talk about in terms of building success through consistency because many of us can feel stuck in areas of our life, whether it's with our finances and pursuing our financial goals, building our financial journey, whether it's building a business, whether it's personal goals to finding more meaning in your life, getting clarity on your purpose, what you're here for. All of these things are big life things to figure out. And usually, real progress can't be made without this concept of consistency. Consistency is how we, on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, do the actions that add up, those little small baby steps and actions that add up over time to get us where we want to be in life. And in this talk, I want to help you learn a new perspective on consistency so that you can stop feeling stuck in these areas. Again, whether it's finances, starting a business, pursuing your personal goals, professional goals, so you can stop feeling stuck and doubting yourself, doubting what to do as your next step, doubting how you're ever going to make it happen, whether you're going to make a difference in the world, whether you're going to ever get results, and actually move toward being able to trust that you're on the right path and to trust yourself so that you can keep going. And let's talk about first, before we dive into the lessons here, what happens when you don't practice consistency, when you're not consistent in moving forward these goals? Well, just kind of wishing and hoping that things will figure themselves out, that someday, I'll get it together and learn how to invest, or someday I'll go start that business of my dreams. Someday I'll find work that's more meaningful. Right? That's not the best way to make your goals happen in life because it's being passive. And passive compared to being assertive and making what you want to happen in your life keeps you stuck, right? And so, how do we get out of being passive? It's about identifying what are those steps that I need to take to move forward my goals, to move forward these dreams I have, and to be consistent on a small daily, weekly, monthly basis for those things to add up over time and get me where I want to go. So you may be thinking and saying, look at her saying all of this, she's got it all figured out. She's an attorney, she's a podcaster, she has a business, right? She shows up every week for her podcast. So that's why I wanted to be real with you all and let you know, like, I struggle too with being consistent. I struggle too with showing up. I struggle too with doing, what needs to be done for my responsibilities and taking the steps to build the dreams for myself and my family and make the impact that I want to make, that I'm meant to make, right? It's actually really challenging. And so I'm going to peel back the curtain a little bit so you all know you're not alone and that, this is something people don't talk about. You see people giving talks and they seem so successful, but everybody struggles with consistency. Everybody struggles with sticking to the steps they have identified they want to take, to move forward their goals. And consistency for me has been a huge theme in how I've been able to move forward the goals, even when I'm tired, I don't feel well, I don't want to, right? It's about showing up, right? And continuing to do what you got to do. So that's actually really been the story of how, we've built immigrant finance is that consistency of continuing to show up week after week over years, whether it's in the podcast, right? On social media, on YouTube, right? For our community, for our students, for the people who just have questions that we do free consults with all the time, continuing to show up and serve and do that consistently has been the recipe and the ingredients for how we've been able to build this community and help now, over 120 immigrant families through immigrant finance be on their financial path to empowerment, to be investing, to be buying property, to be starting businesses, right? So I'll give you an example of, the day-to-day of how it can be challenging. So you mentioned me like, sometimes I'm tired, sometimes I don't feel well. So I was having that this weekend. I usually record the podcast on Sundays. It comes out Tuesdays. And I was just not having a day Sunday where I felt like I had anything interesting or inspiring or helpful to say, right? I had no idea what I was going to talk about this week. And usually I will feel that way a few days before, but the idea will always come to me by Sunday, and it didn't this time. I've had some health challenges going on. I wasn't feeling great. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just tired. I don't want to do it this week, right? But I'm showing up here, and I gave myself the flexibility and grace to wait until I did feel like I had the energy to do it. And I'm showing up because consistency is such an important part of my service to the community we work with, to my audience, right? To our listeners on the podcast, to the people who we can help and make a difference for, right? And so it's about that building in that flexibility and doing it in a sustainable way, not forcing, I didn't force myself to do it on Sunday. I wasn't feeling well. I gave myself some wiggle room when that would happen, but I still showed up. And there's been so many times like that throughout our journey of building our online business where it's been about just continuing to show up, and often the energy comes, like you might even hear a little bit in my voice now. I might sound a little tired, but I'm starting to get more amped up as I'm talking, and that only happened because I showed up. And if I had never shown up in the first place, I wouldn't get to the flow starting to happen, allowing me to do what I'm meant to do to help serve and teach and share any information I can that can be helpful for people, right? So it does actually happen more often than you'd think, right? With people who are in leadership positions, people who seem like they're reaching all their goals, right? But consistency is how they do it. It's they show up week after week, even when it gets hard, and they don't give up on their dreams and goals. And the big theme here is doubt. Doubt can really start to take over and start to trigger those insecurities, whether it's, you're trying to get the courage to be the first in your family to start investing and you're really doubting yourself, or whether, you have this crazy dream for a business you could start that could help a lot of people and you're just doubting if you're someone who could ever have a business, right? Doubt is what keeps us small. Doubt is what stops us from turning our dreams into reality, and consistency is a method for continuing despite the doubt and starting to move into a place of trust. Trust is like the opposite of doubt, right? And they exist in the same energy space. They're very connected emotions, and we can actually tap more into our doubt sometimes, like really allow ourselves to feel the doubt we're feeling, really sit with that, give it space, right? In order to start to feel the trust come through, right? Because they coexist. They're like they're in this plane of duality, if you could think about it. So when you have something in your life, hopefully by now you're thinking of something in your life that you've been having trouble being consistent about, think about, has doubt been part of that? Has deep down, have I been doubting myself, whether I can even do this thing to begin with, whether I'm capable of reaching this goal, whether I'm capable of, improving my finances, whether I'm capable of starting a business, whether I'm capable of finding meaning and purpose in my life. If ultimately what is doubt is what's going on, having systems and strategies is a way to start to peel yourself out of that doubt and move into trust so that you can keep going anyway. So let's get into the lesson for today. All of that being said, for the context, I want to share 3 strategies that can help you with being consistent so that you can move forward no matter what's going on in life, how you're feeling that day, what challenges come up for you, what health issues come up, how you can be consistent and keep going and be in touch with and in alignment with what you are meant to do so that you can keep going and do it in a sustainable way. So number 1 of the 3 strategies I want to talk about that I've started alluding to a little bit is systems, right? Systems are what can allow you to set yourself up for success, right? I'm going to give you the example of this podcast, right? In podcast production, just as like a little example to make this clear. So if I had no system at all for the podcast and I was just like, you know what, I will do it when I feel like it or when I feel inspired, right? It would happen some days. It would not happen most days. It would be totally inconsistent when it happened. My listeners would have no idea when they would hear from me. They probably wouldn't trust me very much because I would be, not consistent. And I would not feel, very good about running the podcast because it would be very by the whims of things. So that's kind of what happens with any goals in life, whether it's your finances, your business, finding purpose in your life. When you don't have a system to help you be consistent in building that, you don't get those results. You start to just be like, something lost in the wind, where maybe some days you move forward, maybe some days you don't. There's not really any plan. So systems help you set up for success. So back to the example with the podcast, right? I have a system where I, have like an automated reminder that reminds me on Sundays to record the podcast, right? And then it gets, published on Tuesday mornings, right? I have that system to keep things on track, but I also have built in within that system a grace period where if Sunday is not a day where I'm feeling it, I still have Monday available, right? I still have, Monday and even maybe Tuesday morning. So this is there, there's a lot more to the system as well with like, getting the show notes done, getting that podcast published, sharing it out on social media to our email subscribers, right? There's a lot of steps that having a system allows us to be consistent so that we're showing up consistently every week with the podcast. And it would be really hard to maintain that consistency if we didn't have those systems, because we'd have to remember each step, each time. So, they're all written up in a process. It's very, automated as much as possible. The steps are very clear. And I give you that example because you can apply this same approach of systems to your finances, for example, with your budgeting, right? You can set out a day of the week or a day of the month where you sit down and check in on your transactions, check in on how your investments are going and your goals. You can automate some of the transactions so that your goals start to happen automatically. Like, systems are our best friend because they literally allow us to automate the implementation of our goals into reality. So that's the first strategy for building success through consistency, is systems. The second thing I want to talk about here is touching a little bit more on that flexibility I mentioned when I gave the example of how normally I try to do the podcast on Sundays, but I have built in flexibility like I'm doing this week, where I'm actually recording it Monday night because I wasn't feeling it on Sunday. So the second strategy here is giving yourself flexibility in designing your systems and your approach for building consistency in a way that's going to be sustainable, in a way that's going to give you flexibility, and where you're coming more from that energy of trusting yourself, right? And serving and being devoted to the work that you're supposed to do, that you're meant to do. So part of, that grace period of having, Sunday or Monday or Tuesday morning to do the podcast is there's a piece of trust in there where I know that if I'm feeling doubt, if I'm feeling insecurity about recording a podcast Sunday, I'm gonna give myself the space to find the trust in myself to still get it done within the next couple of days, right? So this is how you can, the second strategy you can lean into of building, what can you do within your systems of consistency to build in that energy of trust, right? I'll give you another example with budgeting that you could do. So let's say that you get really nervous every month about spending money on yourself, and you feel guilty if you like go out to dinner or go to the movies or something, or get your nails done, right? So what you can do is tap into some of that trust, that self-care, that sustainability that's so important for being consistent, and rethink how you approach that and be like, okay, well, if I don't allow myself to ever spend any money on myself, and I'm constantly just paying the bills and helping other people and giving the money to other people, then this is not going to be sustainable, right? I'm not going to be practicing self-care here. I'm not going to be, prioritizing myself at all. So I'm going to give myself some trust here and know that it is safe for me to plan in my budget to put like $50 or $100, whatever it is, toward myself. And I can plan for that by having all the numbers work together in my system to make sure, my bills are getting paid, that I'm moving for my goals. And so I can feel safe and I can feel trust in this category of spending on myself because I've planned for it, right? That's an example too, where you can sort of like build in some of this idea of grace and trust instead of forcing yourself, right? Instead of being so hard on yourself and denying yourself, it's having that flexibility there for the consistency. So like first strategy, having a system. Second strategy, building flexibility within that system. The third strategy for building success through consistency is connecting to a larger purpose, connecting to your why. Why is it important for you to be pursuing this goal in the first place? Why is it important for you to be showing up consistently in your business or showing up consistently to start it? Why is it important for you to go on this path of figuring out what you're really meant to do and why you're here? Why is it important for you to, reach that financial goal of buying a home? Like what, the list goes on. Any goal you have, connect to the why, because that's going to drive you through those hard times when you're tired and you don't feel well and you don't want to keep doing the daily, weekly, monthly steps that need to be done to build success through consistency, right? So connecting to that why just makes it so much more motivating because you know why you're doing it, right? It makes it easier to show up. It makes it easier to see past how you're feeling in that moment and see the bigger picture of this is something I've committed to be consistent about in order to reach my goals. So there's your 3 strategies. If you found this helpful, let me know, share it with someone it could help. Something else I would love to share with you as a tool, as a resource that could be helpful in this area is one of my personal favorite strategies for learning how to find more trust in yourself, to learn how to move, start to shift from like that overwhelming doubt that we can have that can hold us back from moving forward in the goals we have and building the life we want to have, and start shifting more into trust in ourselves and trust in our ability to be consistent, to make our goals happen. It's a resource I use on getting more clarity on your unique gifts and talents. And that kind of goes to that third strategy of connecting to your why, your larger purpose, so that why you're doing this work. Why are you doing these things that might be uncomfortable, that you have to show up for week after week to get you where you want to go? So this tool, you can get the link in the show notes. It's a free guide I have on how to calculate your unique gift using the tool of numerology. So numerology is a discipline similar to astrology, using calculations from your birth date to get clear on different numbers that basically show what your purpose is, what your gift is, what your soul really is. It's a way to learn more about yourself. So the link is www.internationalempowerment.com/gift. So this free guide is going to walk you through how to figure out what your gift number is, so you can have more clarity on, that thing that you're just amazing at, don't even have to try at, that you are effortlessly amazing at and can lean into in order to make it easier to reach your goals so that you can be consistent. If you have any questions about how that works, just reach out to me. Happy to talk through and hear your questions anytime. And thank you for listening. I'll sum up the key takeaways of the 3 strategies on how to build success through consistency. So number 1, systems help you set yourself up for success. Number 2, building flexibility within those systems, finding ways to trust yourself and commit to the service you're meant to do within your goals and systems, right? By having a sustainable approach. And then number 3, connecting to your larger purpose so that you have that big why that can help you keep going when it gets hard, and be consistent, because at the end of the day, consistency is how you make your goals happen. It's how you build the life you want to have. If you found this helpful, take a moment to subscribe to the show and share it with one person who could benefit from hearing it today. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and bye for now. I'll see you soon.